Welcome to the Luxury Rental Blueprint Podcast, your ultimate guide to creating stunning vacation and corporate rental spaces. Join us as we unveil the secrets to boosting revenue and elevating guest experiences through high-quality design and luxurious amenities. Whether you're a seasoned property investor or just starting out, on this podcast, we aim to provide you with the tools and insights you need to build your own 5-star rental empire. Hello, and welcome to the Luxury Rental Blueprint Podcast. This week's guest is none other than yours truly. So we have had the chance to hear from some pretty incredible operators, co-hosts, and designers, all things short-term rental, mid-term rental, market-specific data. I mean, you name it. We've had a good chance to cover quite a few topics thus far. But one topic that we have not yet covered, and one that I work with so frequently, is hybrid properties. So hybrid properties, for those that are unaware, are properties with multiple exit strategies running concurrently. So we are using short-term rental and medium-term rental. There's a few different ways that I see people operate a hybrid property. One way that I've seen is where during high season, we are prioritizing the STR guest. We are filling our calendar as much as possible and making as much money as possible during that high season. And then as we shift into low season, instead of just sitting vacant, we actually shift our strategy to more of a midterm rental approach where we're, getting longer term contracts, 30, 60, 90 days, sometimes even up to 6 months, just to fill that vacancy. Might be a little bit less revenue coming in, but we're filling that vacancy and we're not sitting empty. Now, another way that I've seen people operate hybrid properties is primarily as a midterm rental, but filling in with short-term rentals during vacancies in between guests. So it is common as in a midterm rental to find a couple of weeks of vacancy in between contracts. So what do you do when you're just sitting vacant for 2 to 3 weeks? You can, on a short term, open your calendar up and bring in short-term guests. Of course, if your location allows it, right? If your city allows it, if your HOA allows it, etc. So the tricky part when it comes to setting up these properties, we've heard about STR design and we've heard about MTR design, but how do we design a property that's going to attract both types of guests? So the first thing that I want to have you think about is your guest type. So when I do market research for a property, I'm pulling just kind of in general, what is in the area of the property that we're looking at? What is attracting people to the area? Many times midterm rental guests are attracted to the area for the same reason that short-term rental guests are. So think about what type of midterm rental guests we often see. We see insurance relocations. Those are people that are already living in the area. And a lot of times they move to the area for the same attractions that are attracting our short-term rental guests. We see a lot of traveling medical professionals or traveling professionals in general, digital nomads. They're also attracted to the area that your property is in, likely for the same reason that your STR guests are attracted to the area. So just think about it from that perspective. A lot of times, both types of guests are attracted to the location for a similar purpose or for a similar reason. Just one is staying for 3 to 7 days. The other one is staying 30 days or more. So be sure before you begin your design work or any kind of research or anything into design, starting to pick your sofa and your pillows and your rugs, be sure that you are defining at least 3 guest types. And if you know that you plan to operate the property as a hybrid, be sure that in those 3 guest types, you are seeing 1 or 2 short-term rental guest types and 1 or 2 midterm rental guest types. Again, if you're primarily going to run as an STR and just fill those vacancies with MTR during slow season, then you maybe want to have 2 STR types and 1 MTR guest type. Now, on the flip hand, if you are primarily a midterm rental, but you know that you're going to have to fulfill those vacancies in between guests with short-term rentals, then have 2 MTR guest types that you want to focus on and 1 STR guest type. So what we're going to do is we're going to create lists for each of those guest types, and we're going to determine what are their pain points when they're trying to book. What are their pain points during their stay? What are their priorities when they're trying to book? What are their priorities during their stay? What are things that we can place into the property ahead of time that's going to give them an exceptional guest experience, that's going to leave them raving about your property, leaving 5-star reviews, telling all of their friends and family about your property, anybody else that's coming into the area, so that you can get word of mouth bookings as well. So think about those things, create those lists. And then what we want to do is we want to find the commonalities between each guest type. And those are the amenities and kind of the design directions that we want to start with when we're starting to map out setting up our space. So when it comes to design, we do know that there's a big difference between STR design and NTR design, right? STR design is very stimulating. It's exciting. It's sexy. It's, hey, look at me. You want to come stay here because this is just like a super cool Instagram worthy spot. Midterm rental design is a little bit different. If I'm going to stay someplace and I'm going to live there for 3 months, I don't really care if I can Instagram it, to be completely honest. Then again, I'm not the best when it comes to Instagram, but you get the point. Many midterm rental guests are not looking for that space because they're looking how to post it on socials or whatever the case may be. They're really looking for functionality in these spaces, but a good design doesn't hurt. If you have 2 properties and both of them fit my needs functionally, if one is way cuter than the other, I'm 100% going to book the cuter property before I book the other property, right? I'm going to book the one that has cuter, newer, trendier design as opposed to grandma's hand-me-downs or leftover pieces that you didn't want to take with you to your new house. If you didn't want to take them to your new house, I promise you nobody else wants to live with them either. So, and I say that with as much grace as possible, right? Sometimes we don't have a choice. But when you're coming into the design aspect of things, you're really thinking through this thoughtfully, intentionally, and really running this as business. It is the case. You don't want to furnish with old stuff, right? Unless you're really going for like a super vintage look, et cetera. Very little of the time does that happen. So when we're talking about design and we're talking about bridging the two, STR and NTR design, my best advice is to keep things fairly neutral. Neutral does not mean that we have to sacrifice color or character, right? We can have a lot of character. We can still use fun wallpapers, but we're going to keep them on the more neutral side, a little bit quieter, think not so loud. We don't need cowboy hats and cowboy boots all over the walls. Let's keep it a little bit more, like if you are going to go geometric or something with a bold pattern, keep it a little bit quieter, a little bit softer, stick to maybe just 2 colors max, so that it's not so in your face. And again, we want to keep these spaces a little bit more relaxing for people. If they're coming and they're staying for a significant period of time, I mean, think through the different types of guests again for midterm rental. Insurance relocation guests, they're in a very stressful period of their life. They need a space that can just be a space of solitude, right? They need something that's not so stimulating because they already have so much going on in their lives. People who are coming for work, they're leaving their home. In some cases, they're leaving their family for a couple of months at a time. And that can be stressful too. So again, just giving them a place to relax at the end of the day when they do come home, someplace that's more functional and more comfortable than, a hotel or God forbid a motel. These are things that we want to consider when we're talking about designing the space. Just make it a welcoming atmosphere. Now, we can still use some color. We just want to keep it to maybe earth tones. So think blues, greens, rusts, browns, golds, grays. We can kind of play anything in that realm. When we're keeping it neutral, I totally get it. We don't want to be boring, right? So we don't have to be boring. What I like to do in order to make a space feel a little bit more high-end, a little bit more luxurious, or even a little bit more exciting when we are sticking to some of these more neutral colors is playing off of textures. So think really fun textures. Think velvets, leathers, metals, bouclés, those nubby fabrics. Those are always fun as well. So since we don't have a high, visual wow factor, let's give them a tactile wow factor. Let's give them something that they can touch and they can kind of come across one space and say, oh, this feels really good. Oh my gosh, do you feel this sofa? This is so soft and cozy. Makes them want to curl up. Throw a really soft, fuzzy blanket over the corner, that kind of thing. So these are the things that we want to think through when we're talking about the design for a hybrid property. Now let's talk about amenities. We've talked about this so much on this podcast, from the short-term rental to the midterm rental. I mean, your amenities are truly what set you apart from your competitors. So as always, when you're doing that market research, you want to look into your competitors and see what amenities they're providing. It's going to do two things. It's going to, number one, give you a bar that you need to hit. We have to have these certain amenities to even be competitive in this market. In addition to that, it's also going to show you a gap in the market. So maybe nobody is providing a wellness space. That is something that you can provide. You can bring in a sauna and a cold plunge and maybe offer an add-on massage therapy session or something along those lines to really play up that wellness factor that maybe nobody's hit on quite yet in your market. Maybe nobody is super family friendly in your market or super pet friendly. So you can be sure from the get-go, you're going to set yourself apart by creating a space that is dedicated for kids or dedicated for pets that make families or pet owners super comfortable, make them really feel welcomed and make it feel functional for them. So let's talk about the difference between functional amenities and attractive amenities. So functional amenities are really common things like really comfortable beds, blackout curtains, sound machines, alarm clocks, chargers for your phone, fully stocked kitchen, enough towels that they don't have to shower and then wash their towels every single day, right? We want to leave them a couple of extra sets of linens. So when it comes to the short-term rental, we're not always so focused on some of these functional amenities. Yes, we want to provide chargers. Yes, we have to provide great beds and bedding. Yes, we probably want to provide blackout curtains. Even stocked kitchens are an expectation now in the STR space. But I'm talking about when it comes to midterm rentals or hybrid properties, taking that just a little step further. So yes, we have great linens, but we're not just giving them the linen set that's on their bed. In a hybrid property, when you anticipate having a longer stay, we want to give them a second set of linen so they can change their own sheets. Because I'm not going in every week to change my guest sheets. My cleaner's not going in every single week to change their sheets. But we're going to hope that the guest is going to go ahead and change their sheets so they don't ruin one set over the other, right? Let's talk about the kitchen. In an STR space, we need it to have enough plates, silverware, glassware for the amount of people that our property is going to sleep, right? But in a hybrid property where you do have people staying for a longer period of time, they might want to have a guest over, or, maybe they make friends with the neighbor. Maybe they make friends at work and they want to have somebody over for a meal. We want to make sure that we not only have enough equipment, dining equipment for just the amount of guests that we're sleeping, but maybe a few extra. So if you sleep 8, do a set of 12. If you sleep 4, do a set of 6, something along those lines. And when it comes to kitchen gadgets, if you will, or kitchen appliances, in the STR space, a crock pot would be great. I know for me, if I'm going out on vacation, let's just say I'm going up to a cabin and we're going to go play in the snow, it would be great to throw something in the crock pot. We do all the fun snow things. And then when we come back in the evening, our soup or our chili is already in the crock pot and it's waiting for us. I'd love to be able to do that. So if you have a crock pot, you're doing great, right? But when it comes to a midterm rental or a hybrid property, we want to add a few more pieces that then become necessities. A rice cooker is a necessity for many, many people. They use it, it's a staple in their kitchen. They use it every week. An air fryer is great if you have one. A smoothie maker or a blender with smaller attachments to be able to blend smoothies and things like that. I like to, if I know that I'm going to be working or attracting traveling professionals, I like to also include like a lunch pail with ice packs or a thermos or, really good hot and cold to-go cups or tumblers. So think through just how your guest is going to use the property and what's going to be most functional for them. Again, you might need to include a few more staples for a hybrid property than you probably would for a short-term rental. And that was just strictly short-term. Now let's look at attractive amenities. So what's the difference here? A functional amenity is something that is a necessity. Somebody needs this for the property to be functional. An attractive amenity is not necessarily a need, but a want. So attractive amenities are where you're going to find the most competition. Many markets are going to have certain amenities that are across the board just required to be competitive. They're not functional amenities, they're attractive amenities, but they are required to be competitive. For instance, if you're in the Smoky Mountains and you have a short-term rental, you know you have to have a hot tub. If you don't have a hot tub, you're not even looked at twice for the most part. Or if you are, you're really going to have to take your pricing down quite a bit just to be competitive with those properties that are offering a hot tub. In many cases like that, if there's a distinct amenity, attractive amenity in your market that you see every property for the most part has, there are guests that will prioritize that amenity over the design of your property. So consider that when you're trying to allocate budget. It is important to get those amenities that everybody's already providing. Now, where you can take it a step further and be even more competitive instead of the higher end of your market is looking for the gap in the market that we talked about earlier. So what we're doing is we're looking for that, you know what? I see so many people out here. Everybody's got their hot tubs. I'm going to put my hot tub in here, but you know what? Nobody else has a sauna. And then that becomes now an amenity that more people begin to put into their properties, like Joshua Tree. Since when did people need a sauna in Joshua Tree? I never really even thought about that, but I guess it makes sense as more and more properties, investors are really focusing on how to stretch their calendar and not just get booked during peak season. They're like, hey, what about during the super cold months? Can we get something in here where they're gonna, have a little bit of especially in the Joshua Tree market, it is very wellness centered. So somebody decided, let's try this out. It worked and more people followed suit. And now it's a very common amenity that you see in that market. So attractive amenities, we're talking those types of things like sauna, we're talking pools, we're talking hot tubs, we're talking pet friendly, we're talking kid friendly or family friendly. Family friendly, we're thinking board games, we're thinking fun things that people can do, maybe arcade games, things of that nature. So keep that in mind when you're considering functional amenities and attractive amenities for your property. So let's also talk about documenting the design and the amenities that you're putting into place. What I mean by that is essentially your photography and what you're putting in your listing. So not only does the photography attract your guest, but also the listing copyright, right? That's where they're going to get their information truly about your property. And we want your listing to be as accurate as possible. Nothing is better than seeing a photo and reading the description and then showing up and it's exactly like they said it was. It sets the expectation from the get-go. Sometimes there's some not so great things about your property. One of the properties that I designed had very small closets, really not a lot of space. And this was a strictly midterm rental. So we had to think through that and we wanted to let guests know ahead of time, look, there's not a lot of storage, but this is what we've done to try to help you out. And I have never had a guest complain about that property. So in fact, people always say, wow, you thought of everything. We feel so welcome. It's exactly like you described it, or it's exactly like the listing showed it. So think these things through when you are moving past the design and into the documentation part of things. And so what I mean is you've already performed the design. You've already set that up. You've already purchased everything. You've already installed everything and it's staged. It's ready to go. Well, now we have to post it online, right? Or else how are people going to find us? So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to documenting. And now, if you can think this far ahead, I personally like to think through the first 5 to 10 photos of my listing when I'm in the design phase. So I take those 5 to 10 photos. What's the greatest thing about this house? Oh my gosh, it has an outdoor kitchen and a pool and a fire pit. They're already back there. Well, we want to document that. We're going to play that up a little bit and then we're going to document that. Or maybe the master bathroom is incredible, and somebody's going to love that master bathroom. If that's the case, then we want to play up that space as well. If our guest type is somebody who's probably going to primarily use the master bedroom and bathroom, then that's a space that we want to focus as well. So we're allocating our budget there. And at the beginning of the design phase, we're already thinking through how we're going to photograph that space. What angle are we going to hit that photo from? Do we want a straight bed shot so that we have an accent wall behind the bed? Are we going to hit it from an angle? So this window is going to be featured. We want to make sure we have really great window treatments on this window. What's outside that window is going to be important as well. So then that can lead us into designing that space that's directly outside that window. So if you can think that far ahead and think through your first 10 photos, I promise you it will make your design phase a little bit easier. You're going to allocate the majority of your budget to those first 10 photos, or at least the spaces that are in those photos. And then make sure that everything else that exists on the property is just kind of flowing really well with the spaces that you're prioritizing.
Transform your real estate investment with Mumford Designs, the boutique interior design firm specializing in short-term and medium-term rental properties. Our data-driven approach ensures your property not only stands out, but consistently delivers 5-star guest experiences. We blend style with strategy, crafting spaces that optimize guest satisfaction and drive top revenue year after year. Our services go beyond aesthetics to provide a full spectrum solution tailored to real estate investors. We offer a property audit that delivers detailed market research, helping to identify design and amenity opportunities within your market. We also create guest avatar profiles to anticipate guests' needs, driving both design decisions and marketing strategies. From full-service design, sourcing, purchasing, and delivery coordination, to installation and staging, we handle every detail, so investors can sit back and enjoy the results. For more in-depth projects, we also offer construction management, ensuring your design vision is realized with precision. With Mumford Designs, you can trust that your property will exceed guest expectations and boost your revenue potential without you having to lift a finger. Book your discovery call at the link in this episode's show notes to get started. Elevate your investment with Mumford Designs, where smart design meets lasting results.
So what does this look like? For one of the properties that I designed, this particular property was a strict midterm rental, but it was directly across the street from a highly desirable elementary school. So they knew that they were going to get insurance relocations in the area. Unfortunately, they knew of some issues in the community that many other homeowners were experiencing, and having had multiple neighbors themselves that had experienced these issues and were had to go through insurance to find temporary housing, et cetera. They kind of already saw this trend coming. They had an anticipation that they were going to have these types of guests. And then the location that they were in is a beach town here in Southern California. And so they also knew that they were going to get people that were coming in from out of town, or even a some corporate housing, but a corporate relocations specifically. So he also had some connections with some corporate offices that were in the area that he knew of having a lot of relocating employees, So he knew that he was going to see a lot of relocating families. He knew that he was going to see a lot of families in the area, people that are attracted to this area primarily because of this elementary school. We had an anticipation that one of our more frequent guest types was going to be families with elementary aged children. So when we started to think through what was going to attract that guest, spaces for their kids was important. A work from home space was important. A kid's space was super important. Maybe like a homework area, space for the kids to play, that they're not wrapped up in parents' hair all day. Things of that nature. We knew that those were going to be really big driving factors for bookings. So in that, we made sure that we created those spaces in the home. There was no technical office, so we created a bedroom that served as a bedroom and office, a flex space, if you will. We made sure that this space was accessible to all guests. So we made sure that it was located on the primary floor of the property. We included a Murphy bed, so the room could be staged as a bedroom. When that bed was tucked away, you could pull the desk into the center of the room, and it was primarily an office. But then we also actually had a workout mirror installed on the wall with a few pieces of equipment like weights, yoga ball, mats, bolsters, things of that nature, stored in the closet as well. So we didn't take up too much of the closet, but we made sure that those things were available for guests to use. So this is what I mean by thinking that through. So in this space, we knew that this space served three purposes. We knew that we were going to get a lot of photos out of this space. And several of them were going to be in our top 5 to 10 photos. So we wanted to make sure we were thinking through which angle we were going to hit certain things at. Hey, if we're coming from this angle and the bed is down, where is the desk going? We want to make sure people know they don't have to physically pick up the desk and move it out of the room. You just slide it over to the wall adjacent to the bed, etc. So we wanted to make sure that in the photos, we staged it all three ways. So we had the desk sitting in the center of the room. We got good photos of it as an office. We pushed the desk to the wall, pulled the bed down, set the whole bed up with the throw pillows and all the things as if it were a bedroom. And we staged it that way and took photos. And then we put that bed up, left that desk against the wall, brought out the yoga mats, set everything up, staged it as if it was a home gym. So think those things through. And then in this particular case, again, when we're talking about using or having a kid-friendly space, unfortunately, there really was no room that could be dedicated as a playroom without sacrificing sleeping capacity. So what we did was we had the bedroom downstairs that was dedicated as a flex space. We have the primary bedroom, and then we had another bedroom upstairs that had twin beds, extra long twin beds so they can accommodate adults, but also just twin beds so that it could be a child's room as well, or that of multiple children. And what we did was we actually carved out a space underneath the stairs. It happened to be completely empty anyways. We were really just going to throw a chair and a lamp and maybe a small bookcase or something just to create a little reading nook down there. Well, what I did is I had my contractor build a custom desk with storage in it, and we stored toys in there. And then we also created a space that was kind of homework / arts and crafts. We had floating shelves above the desk with books. We had a little lamp for, writing and reading. We have stools there for, at least 2 kids to be able to use at the same time. And then we have a few arts and crafts elements as well. All of the toys that we put in this space, because we had an anticipation that some of the families coming, as I said, would be elementary age. So younger, meaning more germs. I'm a mom of 4, if you didn't know. So germs are a very real thing in my life, as I'm sure yours if you have kids or if you've been around kids. So we wanted to make sure that any toys that we brought in were very easy to clean. So if they were plush, like the baby dolls that were all plushies, those could be just tossed in the washing machine, dryer, etc. And then the remaining toys are things like blocks, or a little wooden choo-choo train, a cash register that's made out of wood. Again, it can all be sanitized very easily. Those plushies can also be sanitized with fabric sanitizer. So there's a lot of different ways that we can keep those items clean and germ-free for upcoming guests. So again, all that to say, we really thought through how our guests were going to use the space, and specifically the guests that we most wanted to attract, how they were going to use the space, and then we set the space up accordingly for that. Now, we're not going to disregard the fact that there are other types of guests that are going to come in. It may be a couple who doesn't have children, who's coming from out of the country, this particular area. Often, every summer, we'll see international travelers that come in for months at a time and spend their summers here. So even people within the country that are going to spend their summers here. So we wanted to make it still functional for them as well. Snowbirds frequently are generally of an older age, so it is important that we have a bed on the first floor. So we made sure that first floor bedroom had a bed in it. That's our flex space. We made sure that bed is super comfortable. So we created all of the things that we needed to make sure that bed was going to be a very comfortable bed, even though it is a Murphy bed. And we haven't had any guests complain about it yet. And then, beyond that, it's just, we know that we can't short-term rental in this particular space due to HOA restrictions, as well as, I believe, city restrictions. So outside of that, it's maybe an insurance relocation. If they don't have a family, what are we doing to make sure that it's functional for them? We made sure that kitchen was fully stocked. We have a drip coffee machine and an espresso machine. Nespresso, because it's a little bit easier than your average espresso machine. For instance, I have a Breville. I would not recommend just putting a Breville into any old rental because they take some time to learn, if you will. You have to dial the grind and Make sure the water temperature is just right. Otherwise, you get kind of a sour tasting espresso and it's not fun. An espresso is as easy as popping the pot in, closing the lid, and pushing a button. It's super simple. So if you're going to go espresso, do that for sure. My point in that was to say that we have a wide variety of options in the kitchen to kind of attract a more broad range of guests. We have tea kettle. We offer tea and coffee and espresso pods. The drip machine that I prefer to use in all of my properties is a Ninja coffee bar system or something along these lines. It does hot coffee. It does like a specialty coffee, so like a really rich brew that you could theoretically make a latte with if you wanted to. It does coffee over ice. So you could do cold brew. You can brew tea in it as well. So there's many different settings. It has a whisk that pops off the side, and then whisks to be able to froth your milk. Although I also like to offer a milk frother. It's like $19 on Amazon. Why wouldn't you just add it? So we had the full coffee bar, syrups and all. So beyond that, we made sure with this particular property, because of the location, we anticipated having, whether it's somebody that was already living in the area or somebody that's relocating to the area, they're going to reach a certain annual income level, right? They're a certain caliber. They have a certain standard to the way that they live. They have certain places that they shop and certain places that they don't shop. So you want to be careful about any brand names on your product. Because I'll use the example. I went to a restaurant in Los Angeles, like downtown LA. It was kind of a fancy restaurant. It was not inexpensive. So it was a little bit of a splurge for me. And I don't know why I was a little disappointed to see an IKEA water glass. I just expected more. Like if I'm paying you $9 for the bottle of Perrier, can we put it in a glass that's not IKEA? I don't know. It seems silly. But all that to say, when you have a guest who has a certain standard of living, you need to meet that standard of living. So if they're not going to buy they're not going to go with Folgers coffee. You want to provide the type of coffee that they're probably used to drinking. So think that through in terms of creating an exceptional guest experience. And when it comes to documenting those things, make sure that you're getting photos of all of those things that you've put so much thought and effort into providing for those guests, because those are the things that are going to attract people in booking the property to begin with. And then don't forget to make sure that it's in your copyright as well. So fully stocked kitchen means we have a coffee bar that includes X, Y, Z, A, B, C. So be sure that you're including it in the photography. Be sure that you're including it in the listing as well. And then again, if it's one of those gaps in the market, it's got to be one of your top photos, like at least your top 3. If it's a gap item, if it's nobody in your market is offering a pool and your property has a pool, that's got to be photo number 1. If nobody in your market has an outdoor kitchen that is like fully built in, it has all of the bells and whistles, a pizza oven, whatever the case may be, that's got to be your photo number 1. If that's something that you're providing that nobody else is providing. Now, if you're providing something that everybody else is providing, make sure that's at least in your top 3 to 5. So just think those things through, because that documentation is the proof of all of your efforts when it comes to the design phase and installation and all of the things. If you need help, by all means, please reach out to me. If I cannot help you in your particular area for whatever reason, I have so many connections, really, truly all across the country, and I would be happy to put you in contact with any of them so that you can get things started off on the right foot for your property. We want you guys to be as successful as possible. So please don't hesitate. If there's any specific questions that you have that we haven't really gone over, go ahead and drop them in the comments, and I will be sure to answer them on my social media. I can tag you if you need me to. That way you don't miss the answer. And if there's enough questions, then surely we'll create a part 2 and we'll make sure that we get all of those questions answered. For those of you that don't know where to find me, I am on social media at Mumford_designs. That's Instagram or Facebook, LinkedIn as well, Breanna Williams. So we'll put that in the show notes. And again, if you ever have any questions, I try to be as open as much of an open book as I can be. So please don't hesitate to reach out and to ask. I hope that you guys were able to take some valuable information from this episode. Thank you so much for listening and have a great week.